Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to our Queen's Gambit Decline series. So in this series we're covering this very nice opening from White's and from Black's perspective, and today we're continuing with our Queen's Gambit Decline series and the so-called Harrwitz attack. The Harrwitz attack we have explained so far in 7 videos, but recently we have started with the so-called Fianchetto defense against the Harrwitz attack, and we have analyzed some particular sidelines, but today we're analyzing also some different sidelines which are in my opinion slightly better than the sidelines that we have analyzed before, because they're much sharper with also some great counterplay possibilities for Black. So in order to get a better understanding of this particular video, please watch my previous analysis, because we have analyzed some potential sidelines, some potential ideas that can happen to you. So as I said, in order to get a better understanding of this video, it's really necessary to watch the series from the beginning. So part 1, part 2, part 3, and so on. So let's check out now again what is the Queen's Gambit declined, what is the Harrwitz attack, what is the Fianchetto defense of the Harrwitz attack, and then what's the best approach, what is really the best sideline of this particular opening. So here d4, we have d5, c4, Queen's Gambit declined. Of course, after move e6 we have now knight to c3, knight to f6, and after knight to f3 we have first of all the 3 knights variation of the Queen's Gambit decline. After bishop to e7 we have now the actual Harrwitz attack move, which is of course the move bishop to f4. Now we have normal stuff, casting. After move e3 we have analyzed so far in my series the move c5, which is really one of the best ways and the most aggressive method how to beat White's Harrwitz attack. But here we analyzing again the move b6, which is now the so-called Fianchetto defense of the Harrwitz attack. So what's the difference with this move early c5 or with the preparation to play the move b6 and c5? Well, it's obvious. I think if you play c5, we have analyzed these lines before. White will simply proceed with the move d takes c5 and bishop to c5. After now potential b6, and here let's see, c takes d5, or if White doesn't play this move, then after c5, d takes c5 and b takes c5, Black will connect again 3 pawns in the center of the board. Black will have then a dominant position in the center when it comes to pawn activity. So that's why here after move b6, one of the best ways and my recommendation is simply to play c takes d5, because after c takes d5 Black has now basically 2 choices, knight to d5 or e takes d5. My recommendation here from Black's perspective is to play knight to d5, because we have analyzed also this potential line e takes d5 with a great gameplay by Mikhail Tal from White's perspective. In my opinion, after e takes d5 you're blocking your Lightfoot bishop a little bit too much out, and now after something like rook to c1, if you want to maybe get rid of your bad bishop, because if the bishop comes on b7 it's really not so good, it's really blocked out by its own pawn, then I think normal stuff could be bishop to a6, knight to a6, and then after queen to a4 the knight will lose another tempo, and I simply don't like this position around the square c6, and also the c7 is a long-term weakness with knight to b5. I think White could have a really good game, Black could face really some tactical problems. So that's why after move c takes d5, my recommendation here from Black's perspective is to play knight to d5. After knight to d5, which is again my recommendation how White should make a game here, again I'm recommending you not to take with the pawn, to simply take with the queen to d5. You may think, okay, something went wrong because your pawn on c7 is hanging, but actually this is not the problem, because we can notice, again I'm pointing out, White is still 2 more moves far away from fully developing from Carlsen, because White needs to play bishop to d3 and then maybe finally Carlsen. So let's see now the possible continuation after bishop takes c7. After bishop to c7, you see White can challenge immediately by the move bishop to b4. You have to play something like knight to d2, and then normal development is the good stuff here, knight to c6, and then maybe even something like bishop to a6 if possible. If maybe the bishop gets somewhere else, bishop to a6 or bishop to b7 is also a good opportunity then to break through, even with the move e5. And the problem is now bishop to e2 or bishop in d3 is not working, because you're leaving your pawn on g2 hanging. So I think in this particular scenario White has really an unpleasant game. White needs to develop the pieces somehow. So as I said, Black I think in this particular lines could have a comfortable game, although down the whole pawn. So that's why many times after move queen to d5 you see this continuation, bishop to d3. Here White is preparing at least one more move, and then white wants to maybe take out here the pawn on c7, and then is trying to play, of course, kingside castling. But you see white can get challenged immediately with, again, with this idea bishop to a6. If you take now bishop to c7 immediately, then it's really a weird game already, because here after queen to a5 you get challenged immediately. You could make now one huge mistake. You could make this move, king to e2, and it seems like a good idea. King to e2 seems like a perfect idea, but because what you want to do, of course, is to play then maybe something like here rook to e1, then maybe king to f1 and secure the king by castling, because after queen takes d3, pardon me, bishop to d3, queen to d3, it seems that everything is pretty much glued together. Now, as we said, simply playing rook to c1 and king to f1 is perfectly fine. But here white get challenged immediately by this move, knight to a6, and you could now make a huge mistake. You could make this move, bishop to g3 is really game over already. Here it seems that, again, that I'm pointing out, it seems that you have defended everything, because now you can play something like rook from h to c1, you can compete on the c file, and finally play the move king to f1. But the problem is you get challenged with the move knight to b4, and believe me when I say I have played several times this position. I made these mistakes in the game, and that's why I wanted to point you out what could be really the main mistake of this particular line. So don't do this. I've lost many games in this particular lines, especially blitz games. I forget sometimes about the potential lines, play still the move king to e2, and then get challenged by this move knight to b4, and then it's simply game over. Because after move knight to b4 you have to play something like queen to b3. You see, you're getting out of your protection of the king, and now with the move queen to a6, king to d2 has to be played, and now you see with maybe something like rook from a to c8, here also the threat is knight rook to c2. That's why you have to compete maybe here with the rook move. But now comes the stunner, which I think you should be really familiar with. It's the move knight to c2. Knight to c2 is really a wild move, because the problem is now the threat is, of course, the move bishop to b4. So that's why even if you take rook takes c2, then rook takes c2, and you have basically two choices. If you play queen to c2, then you get bishop to b4. You have to play something like king to d1 if you don't want to lose the queen. But now with queen to f1, it's game over. So this is now this brilliant tactic that you can prepare in the Harrwitz attack. Even if you take here with the king, it's not even better, because here with queen to e2 you can maybe cover with the knight to d2. But now with rook to c8, here again it will be simply game over. Queen to c3 is a necessary move, and then I think black is simply winning the game. So you see, let's go back to this critical moment. After move knight to a6 here, the only good way I think to protect this position is to play rook from h to c1, hoping for the best really, but actually it's not even so much better, because rook from a to c8 will happen, bishop to g3, and again this knight to b4 idea could work, and again white could face many problems. So let's see now a different approach here of this game. Here it's a great gameplay by Fabiano Caruana against Hikaru Nakamura. Here we have again the Harrwitz attack. After move e3 we have again the Fianchetto defense, c takes d5, knight to d5, knight to d5, here queen to d5, again bishop to d3. As we said, bishop takes c7 is not so good. Here in a continuation, bishop to d3, again this idea queen to f5, king to f1 is much more accurate, because we wanted now finally to escape with our king, maybe here to g1, then we want to play h3, and then king to h2. That's even a better way how to secure the king. Here in the continuation, again Hikaru Nakamura proceeded with the sharp move, bishop to a6. We have bishop takes c7 finally here by Fabiano Caruana, and we have now bishop to d3, queen to d3. And the problem is now that in this particular line the main difference I think is after potential king to e2 and queen to a6, you see the king cannot escape to f1. Now even if we get challenged maybe on this long diagonal, the king can escape to g1, and that's now a huge difference. The engine gives here equal chances for both sides. So of course white is up on pawn, white has grabbed the pawn on c7, but of course it's obvious that black is now a huge activity. So finally bishop to g3, we have again knight to b4, we have queen to e2. So you see now Hikaru Hikaru Nakamura challenged, of course, Fabiano Caruana's queen on the board, is challenging also white on this diagonal, but now it's a much better position, I think, than the position that we have analyzed before, because after queen to e2, now finally white is hoping for to escape with king to g1 and then h3, king to h2. So in my opinion, this is much better, although you haven't castled so far, but it's simply time now to escape. So here rook to c8, we have a3, we have queen to a4, king to g1, knight to a6, knight to a2 is really a wild move here by Hikaru Nakamura, because if you take here rook takes a2, then you get the stunner knight rook to c1. You could maybe cover here, but now with queen to c2, the game is over. You see, even if you take queen takes c2, then rook to e1 is simply winning the game. So here Hikaru found really great moves, knight to a2, how to activate the pieces further. We have now h3. Finally, Caruana is escaping with the king to h2. Then we have knight to c1, the direct threat against the queen, queen to f1, and now queen to c2, king to h2, knight to e2, and now bishop to e5. Now queen takes b2, and you see now finally Hikaru has grabbed also pawn, but we have to say it, finally Fabiano Caruana has regrouped, although now the material is equal, but in my opinion white is slightly better because especially of this bishop's activity in the center of the board. So here also we can notice the knight could be an object of white's attack, because the knight is really okay, it's on an active score, but in a couple more moves it can be also challenged by some activities of white. So here we have d5 by Caruana. He plays this very dangerous attack against the queen. After move knight to c3, we have now d takes e6, and after f takes e6, here it's obvious that this isolated pawn on e6 will be a long-term problem for black. And although here Hikaru Nakamura won the game, here I wanted to stop. It's not the point that we show now what happens if that happens. I wanted to show you first of all the main strategical ideas of this Harrwitz attack, and how, for instance, Fabiano Caruana escaped from this attack by Hikaru Nakamura. From this point on, the engine gives here already +1 evaluation for white, but Hikaru Nakamura won the game. But I wanted to show you, as I said, simply the main ideas, the main goals, what's the most important thing here to recognize, because in this particular line, let's go back, it was much more important to play the move king to f1 instead of this move king to e2. That's the main issue. That's something that I want you to remember, because if you play king to e2, you get challenged. Bishop to a6, knight to b4, we have said, is the main threat. Then you don't have any more this escape route. You cannot escape with your king to f1, so you could face really many tactical problems. So let's see now how Magnus Carlsen played here the Fianchetto defense against Timur Ajabov. Timur Ajabov here with the white pieces. It was a different mover, but again the position was a Queen's Gambit declined. After move bishop to e7, the Harrwitz attack, e3, b6, again the Fianchetto defense, c takes d5. We have now knight to d5, knight to d5, and here after queen to d5, again this normal move, bishop to d3, queen to a5. And you see now here Magnus tried also this king, Timur Ajabov tried also the move king to e2, but now again the game becomes really wild. We have now a3 here by Timur Ajabov. Timur Ajabov is protecting the b4 square, which is a good choice, because as we said in the beginning, knight to a6 and then knight to b4 could be the main threat. So now with the move a3, at least some kind of a counterplay here by the top grandmaster from Azerbaijan. A3 is, I think, also a nice approach here. So in the continuation, Magnus tried c5, because with the move a3 we can notice, okay, white has gained something but has lost also now another tempo. With the move c5, again white center get challenged immediately. So we have now b4, great counterplay here by Timur Ajabov, because if you try something like c takes b4, a takes b4, the problem is now you cannot take here, because after bishop to d3, queen to d3, the problems you cannot take with the queen here on b4, because you get trapped with the move rook to b1. You see, this is also a tricky idea which Timur Ajabov has prepared here. So that's why after move b4, here Magnus played first the move bishop to d3, we have queen to d3, and now here queen to a5, queen to a4 by Magnus Carlsen. We have b takes c5, b takes c5, and after rook to c1, knight to d7, the position was pretty much equal. And again, I want to stop here. I wanted to show you just also different approaches how you can play the game, because in this particular line I think the most important thing is to simply break through with the move c5. Let's go back here. So here c5 is the main method here from black's perspective. If white plays a passive move like a3, it is of course preventing some knight to b4 ideas that we have seen in our previous analysis. Knight to b4 was a main threat, but now with the move a3 here, Magnus Carlsen challenged immediately Timur Ajabov with the move c5. Here you see b4 was a necessary move in order to make some kind of a counterplay. So as I said, it was, I think, a different approach, but in this particular lines, Magnus Carlsen get out with a decent position. The king is secured, as I said, and still maybe in the continuation the king has to be improved, maybe to f1. You have to play something like rook to e1, then king to f1 in order to get some kind of a king security. So these are the main strategical ideas and the main strategical goals of the Fianchetto defense after potential queen to d5. As we said, e takes d5, maybe not the best of ways. In my opinion, the game is more dynamic if you're playing here the Queen's Gambit declined from black's perspective like this with the continuation queen to d5. Let's go back. This is now the critical moment, so you have the choice, e takes d5 or queen to d5. In my opinion, queen to d5 leads into better game here for black. Black has many opportunities to play, and you saw also if white doesn't react correctly, if white makes only one slight inaccuracy, then it's simply game over. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you realized the main tactical and strategical problems of this particular sideline. If you want to study the Harrwitz attack more and the Queen's Gambit decline more, please check out my whole playlist with some more games that we have analyzed before. And if you have trouble maybe to play as black, check out my hyper accelerated rank Sicilian defense series and my Nimzo in the defense series as good responses to d4 and e4. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.